the genesis of this problem relates back to the debt-based money system and the manipulation of the bond market and the destabilization of the gold market, which has been going on for decades now, and that is now coming to an end. And it's being caused by the fact that the physical metal is being withdrawn from the monetary system by Asian and other countries who actually understand the dynamic that we're using and are taking the metal out of the system.
Hey friends, I hope you've been well. Thanks so much for clicking play. It's great to have you back, and it's great to have back David Jensen from safehaven.com. David Jensen is a truth teller, a researcher, and a precious metals pundit. David, welcome back. How are you?
I'm well, Sean. How are you?
Well, I'm doing well, and our last interview that included you and Michael Oliver was well received. And today, David, I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on not only the global economic picture, including the downward spiral of Deutsche Bank, but I wanted to ask you about the elections. So before I do that, though, I should say one thing, guys. If you got a video alert from me about a week ago with a little video called Super Duper Boys 4, I just want to explain what that was and why you got it. It was one of the first videos I ever put up on my YouTube channel in 2010. It was of 3 of my kids and a neighbor boy, and it was marked private on my YouTube channel all these years, and my kids wanted me to make it public so they could show their friends now that they've all grown up. I made it public, and it went out to everybody, which I certainly didn't expect. So if you got that video, Super Duper Boys 4, that's why you got it. My apologies, but maybe you could get some fun out of it. And David, I'll tell you what, it doesn't take much to screw up these days. And the best example of that is Hillary Clinton's IT guy, Paul Gambetta, who was granted immunity from Obama's DOJ, is the employee who deleted all of her emails. And get this, he went on Reddit to ask for help on how to delete Hillary's email address in all of the to and from fields. You want to talk about an epic screw up? Did you read that story?
I did.
It's just astounding. Let me just flush that out for folks, guys. If this is news to you, let me read this. Apparently, he was on Reddit with the username StoneTerror, and he wrote, let me quote, "Hello all. I may be facing a very interesting situation where I need to strip out a VIP's, very VIP, email address from a bunch of archived email that I have both in a live exchange mailbox as well as a PST file. Basically, they don't want the VIP's email address exposed to anyone and want to be able to either strip out or replace the email address in the to from fields in all of the emails we want to send out." Now, if that doesn't speak to the intent to defraud and lie and cover up her crimes, David, I just don't know what does.
Yeah, it's pretty telling. That kind of a disclosure that there is, they were basically bleaching the emails on the system to hide the distribution to her. I can't help but think, though, Sean, that the key issue with the Clinton Foundation relates back. The issue with the Clintons relates to the Clinton Foundation. And I saw your interview or listened to your interview with Charles Ortel, and I think that is the key thing here about the pay for play, as they call it.
As they call it, right?
Scrubbing out Hillary without question has been involved in numerous illegalities while she's been in office. But I think when you look at potentially tens of billions of dollars for Haiti and other targets for their donations, such as AIDS in Africa and things, the monies have just basically disappeared into that foundation, into accounts which have gone through no audits.
In 2010, the earthquake of Haiti, not only American taxpayers, but the whole world has given billions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation for the Haitians. Not even 2% of that money went back to Haiti. So, Mr. Trump, we are asking you, begging you, the Haitian community will side with you if one day you ask Hillary Clinton publicly to disclose the audit of all the money they have stolen from Haiti in 2010 after the earthquake.
And I do think that the issue, that it's terrible what's happened with her emails and the disclosure, but I think that that is more or less now known, to the public at large. But I think the big question is exactly the scale and the scope of the corruption which was involved with the Clinton Foundation. And I can't help but feel that is what is going to blow up now in the next 4 to 6 weeks here as we head into the election.
Well, it ought to. Now, of course, the mainstream media will cover up for her if given the chance. They'll go out of their way to cover up for her. And in fact, you mentioned pay for play, which I think is just a ludicrous term. It's bribery. Let's just call it what it is, pay for play. That's just a warm, fuzzy term for bribery. And you're right. Charles Ortel has the goods on these people. And, in my recent video that I just put up the other day, which was called Trump's Final Warning for America, at the end of it, I put up a very powerful statement from the former president of the Senate of Haiti, who showed up at one of these Trump events and got on the microphone and begged Trump in his next debate, quote unquote debate with Hillary Clinton, to ask her to disclose the audits of all of the money, the billions of dollars of monies that were supposed to go to the people of Haiti that instead went to the Clinton Foundation and vanished.
I have proof because I have worked with American intelligence about the drugs coming from Haiti to the United States and how the money went back to Haiti, in cornflakes boxes. It's unbelievable. And that money was used to pay lobbyists in Washington, D.C. during the Clinton administration, and the money found its way all the way to the White House. Sir, please, the Haitian people is counting on you.
And that you're right. That's the smoking gun of her criminality. But guess what? She and the Bushes are part of the deep state, as Peter Dale Scott calls it, the deep state. And you'll love this piece of news. George H.W. Bush says he's voting for Hillary. I've just got to read this to you because it speaks to the epic corruption we face as a nation that goes back decades and includes the Bush and Clinton crime families. On Monday, Kathleen Harrington Kennedy Townsend posted a picture on her Facebook page shaking hands next to the former president, and this caption, "The president told me he's voting for Hillary." Does that not just say it all?
Yeah, they've been long associated, the two families have long been associated with each other back to when George Herbert Walker Bush or Bush Sr. was president and Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas. So, and there's all kinds of very well documented activity around the Mena, Arkansas airport and the involvement in Iran-Contra and other things. So
that's right.
There is very, very close linkages between these families. The issue that I have, and a very troubling sense I have, is that Trump says many things, and you really know a person by their enemies, and he's certainly got the exact right group of enemies. He's raising the point there about the economy being a totally false economy created by the Federal Reserve is absolutely bang on. And where that quickly leads back to is the rigging of interest rates, and thus the rigging of the bond market and creation of these bubbles. And at the heart of it all is the rigging of the gold markets, which was operated at its core was operated by Goldman Sachs and their division J. Aaron and Sons. And the information for that comes from the book Gold Wars by Ferdinand Lips. He was an insider in the industry, and he had stumbled upon this back in the mid-90s. But the difficulty I have is that on the one hand, he talks about the troubles with the Federal Reserve, but then his solution is one of modifying the Federal Reserve and not creating a sound money system. And Ron Paul has pointed out the problem with this. And the other aspect to it is that the intent to continue on with a war policy. And a war policy and creating a very large military. And that necessitates deficit spending. And you can't continue deficit spending with a sound money system. So what we are doing here, we're running into conflict between the things that Donald Trump proposes. I agree that there is deep corruption and crime, and I think you have to call it crime. And when you look at the bona fides of Charles Ortel and his research into AIG and into General Electric Capital, he's a very, very well-schooled and experienced person, and he identifies the criminality which is involved, and really I think that this Clinton Foundation issue is going to blow open. I think it hasn't until now. The director of the CIA, Comey, his brother's law firm does the tax returns for the Clinton Foundation. So there's reasons why I think it hasn't blown open until now. And I think that there are real problems, but my concern here is are we going to be disappointed with Trump in the end? And I've just got a nagging feeling that's there. It's so many things he says, are the correct things. Some things are concerning, including the continuation of a war policy. And certainly he's got the exact right group of enemies when you look at the different interests of the state. The Pope is speaking out against him. Goldman Sachs will not allow their employees to make donations to his campaign. And I think that has to be related to the fact that Trump is speaking of things that lead directly back to Goldman Sachs. I just hope that we're not disappointed in the end. And it's, I guess, once bitten, twice shy. I'm just concerned about the potential here.
Yeah, and we have many listeners who believe that Trump is just a puppet playing his role in this presidential theater. But I don't agree with that, because the New World Order powers, right, the Clinton, Bush powers,
yes,
have laid themselves bare. The mainstream media has laid themselves bare. We've seen the old men behind the curtain here revealed. Everybody can see how corrupt this system is. So even if you were a Bernie delegate or a Bernie supporter, you saw how you got screwed by the DNC, just like Ron Paul supporters got screwed by the GOP. So all those Ron Paul supporters woke up when that happened. Now all the Bernie supporters have woken up. They're literally burning down their house in an effort to save it. And I'm talking about the Clinton crime family and those that support them. And standing in stark contrast to that, as you well know, is Trump saying, your Second Amendment is under siege. I'm going to save your Second Amendment. I am not going to sign globalist trade treaties that don't put America first. I'm going to dismantle Obamacare. I'm going to stem the tide of illegal immigration because it's destroying us from within. And if you take a look at what's going on with Soros, he's destroying Europe. Did you see the video of the migrants lining the streets of Paris? I mean, these refugees, these migrants are destroying nations, and it's being done by this New World Order globalist power that supports Hillary. So I agree with you about Trump. There's an 80-20 bucket. Maybe 80% of what he says is good and 20% is cause for concern. But as you and I both know, there's no one man on this planet that can take on the military-industrial complex by themselves. I mean, not on day one. So I know I'm going on a tirade here, but I just want to give you this bigger thought and then throw it back to you. I was listening to a very interesting interview between Joseph P. Farrell and the Dark Journalist YouTube channel. And Farrell believes that what we are seeing is the evidence of two different factions fighting over the direction they want to take this globe. And the old order, the Rothschild-Rockefeller order, is under attack by the groups that support Snowden and Assange, because Joseph P. Farrell believes there's no way that Snowden was able to get all that information on his own. He has the backing of some entity. So Joseph P. Farrell says what we are seeing unfolding geopolitically is the falling away of this old Rockefeller-Rothschild order that is now in the process of dying, and there's some new faction standing in opposition to that. And what we're seeing are people who do love this country and want to put an end to this globalization, which is destroying it from within. It's a lot to take in, but I think it's very interesting.
Well, it may be. It's very difficult to say from this standpoint because of incomplete information, but if the core of the policy of Trump is not sound money, we are heading into a global bond market and stock market crisis, and the currencies, the monetary system is going to be destabilized. And if the core is not a sound money policy, if it's just trying to do more with the same, that is very concerning, because the monetary system and the ability to continue on exchange with a respected unit of exchange or an accepted unit of exchange is key to the functioning of society. And from a supply chain standpoint, if you have even the smallest disruptions on a countrywide basis or a regional basis of the supply of diesel, which is what makes the U.S. economy go around, people just have no sense here in terms of it's not their cars that matter, it's the diesel trucks that provide the just-in-time supplies to the food stores and to the manufacturing plants to a secondary level. But the critical thing is food and fuel. And if you have any disruption there because of currency disruption or monetary system disruption, you're going to have societal disruption as well. And so this is my concern here, is that I'm hearing things talked about which indicate continuation of the fiat monetary system and deficit spending system, and that is not going to be successful. It's going to lead to a further crisis. So maybe I can just leave a thought there. It's very difficult to say at this standpoint. Some things Trump says I think are good, and other things to me are kind of like leaving me thinking, oh no, well, this is not the right thing at all that he's saying. So
Yeah, but we know what we'd get with Hillary, right? What we'd get is more of the same, more globalization, more secret trade treaties, more collectivist policies that destroy our families, our economy. They're going to burn this thing down from within. And as Trump recently said, if she gets in and appoints a few more Supreme Court justices that are liberal, we're going to turn into Venezuela. His own words, and I think he's right. And I don't think that this international monetary problem, this international global economy, can be saved by him or anybody else, and a return to sound money is very, very important. But if we take a look at the global economic picture, we see the SDRs now coming into view. We see China being able to trade U.S. treasuries for SDRs. We see the World Bank, and really the Rothschilds, I think, playing a role in this thing, trying to keep it stitched together. And it leads me to wonder if this dollar can continue much longer than we thought it could, based on the fact that it is the best of the worst. And as the worst fall away, will the dollar survive? Can this thing stay stitched together for another 5 years, 10 years? I don't know. I mean, it seems like with these SDRs, these guys could just, according to Max Kaiser, they could roll over another $100 trillion in debt, and this thing could go on in perpetuity.
well, the SDRs are a basket of fiat debt currencies, and we're heading into a debt crisis. And the sustainability of the system is what's at stake here. So implementation of an SDR will work as long as there's not a crisis, but I would argue the implementation of the SDR will lead to a crisis because of the washback in U.S. treasuries that are held overseas, and the ceasage of use of the U.S. dollar in many different applications for day-to-day transactions, which is absorbing much of the monetary inflation which has occurred by the central bank. So,
well, that's a great point. I should just jump in and say, because what you're saying is that once the usage of those dollars dries up, those dollars are coming home, and we're going to suffer hyperinflation.
yeah, and you're going to have rejection of currency, rejection of not just the U.S. dollar, though, because all of the currencies have the same problem. Here in Canada, we have quite a bit more debt. I don't have the exact number, but it's over 400% of GDP now in outstanding total credit market borrowings in Canada. And while the government, the federal government, and the provincial borrowing is somewhat less than the U.S. By a small margin, we far exceed the combined corporate and consumer borrowings. That drives us. I think the U.S. is about 340% of GDP, and we're around 400% of GDP here in Canada. So, we have we aren't by any means an exemplar. Here in Canada and Europe, the euro, they have the same issues in that area. So we are heading into a debt market crisis, and as a consequence, we're heading into a debt currency crisis as well. And the solution is by implementation of sound money, and the SDR, which is a basket of debt currencies, is not the vehicle or the lifeboat to save us from this issue.
Okay, well, that makes sense. And the other thing that makes sense as you're talking about this is I realize that they can't hide the selling of all these U.S. treasuries forever. And the other thing they absolutely can't hide is this derivatives bubble collapsing. Italy's prime minister unloads on Deutsche Bank's unfixable problems, saying hundreds and hundreds of billions of euros of derivatives. Of course, Zero Hedge says it's 42 trillion to be precise. Deutsche's dead bank bounce is over. The last few days have seen shares of the most systemically dangerous bank in the world plunge almost 20% back to record lows as the DOJ fine demands reawoken reality that the $42 trillion derivative book bank is severely undercapitalized no matter how you spin asset values. However, another question looms. Is Deutsche Bank cooking its derivatives book to hide huge losses? Who would be surprised if that were the case? The SDRs aren't going to save them from this derivatives bubble collapse, are they?
No, and I mean, if you look at the book of Citibank, it's enormous in terms of the derivatives market as well. It's of the same scale, of the same order. The Italian banks are an absolute nightmare when you look at their balance sheets. Deutsche Bank is a sick, wounded bank, but it appears to be the vehicle for approbation. Just looking at it, and they're saying there's a problem here, and the Italians calling out the Germans. It's a little bit amusing on some levels in terms of the fiscal policy which has gone on in those countries. But the banking system for sure is ill. It's ill in all countries, and no country is going to come out of this looking well. Even the Swiss banking system is completely corrupted, and they've got a debt problem. So, strangely enough, the country with the lowest outstanding government debt is Russia. Last time I checked, they were somewhere around 18% of GDP, and they're actually running an interest rate of the order of 8-9% right now, which is within reason. But again, all of these systems with centrally planned interest rates and centrally planned money systems are really, in my mind, to me, are historical artifacts, or we're trying to hold on as opposed to dealing with the issues and prevent a crisis. What appears to be happening is that the crisis is going to happen, and a new system which will have many of the features, endemic features of illness of the previous system are going to continue on. And that brings us back to Trump again, and I'm just not hearing, I mean, maybe he can't talk about it for a whole series of reasons about his solutions, but I'm just not hearing the right solutions here to this approaching core issue, which is monetary system disruption, debt market, and financial system disruption.
Right, but it does need to be said and resaid that the two people who are the front runners to be president of the United States of America at this point include one person who should be in prison for perjury to Congress and for her epic litany of crimes that go back all the way to Mena, Arkansas, like you mentioned at the beginning of the interview. And that is the tie between the Bush crime family and the Clinton crime family, is that when Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas, they were running drugs through Mena, Arkansas. CIA was running drugs through Mena, Arkansas. Many people who learned of what was going on down there lost their lives. You can take a look at the Clinton body count to learn more about that. And the fact of the matter is that there is a hardcore criminal named Hillary Clinton who is on the cusp of winning the presidency if this system can steal it for her, which is what they're going to try to do. And given the choice between the two, I'll take Trump all day long.
Yeah, I mean, the issue also for me with Hillary Clinton is this push for war with Russia.
Yes,
and
that's right.
I think that a Clinton presidency means almost immediate military conflict.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I've said that before because, again, on the list of things where Trump stands in stark contrast to her is that he wants to talk with Putin. He wants to have a conversation with Putin. She wants to demonize Putin, surround him with NATO, and go to war. She will push us into World War III as her banking puppet masters want her to, whereas Trump might be able to pull us back from World War III by having a conversation with Putin, which is exactly what saved us from World War III back in the days of Kennedy and Khrushchev. They spoke to each other.
Yeah.
That is one of the most important points of this conversation. Hillary Clinton will take us to World War III.
It'll be global conflict, and it's not just with Russia now, it'll be with China. As you can see with Obama's policies, the hope and change military policies that he's got are just taking us inexorably towards conflict with Russia and China. And Russia and China, of course, have the largest gold holdings, I think, in reality, and they are prepared for a new monetary system which doesn't use SDRs. I believe SDRs are basically just a stepping stone to skip across the stream to the other side, which is a sound money system. Mm-hmm. But these are the enemies of the Western debt-based banking system. Are those who have options to our policies, which have been implemented over decades now.
It's amazing. We recount all of this criminality, and against the backdrop of all the criminality in the political sphere that we've just talked about, we've got the criminality in the economic sphere on Wall Street, the Federal Reserve criminality, the epic criminality of the gold cartel, which throws billions of dollars of paper at the market, sometimes on a daily basis. I was listening to an interview recently with Keith Neumeyer. Turd Ferguson was speaking with Keith Neumeyer. Keith talked about his amazement that on certain days we'll see more than the entire world mines in a whole year of silver thrown at the market in one day. And it happens time and time and time again. And it's just one more piece of evidence of the epic criminality that surrounds us in our daily lives now.
Yeah, and I just harking back one more time to the Deutsche Bank issue, and I guess what ties into that to some extent is what's going on with Wells Fargo right now. Bad stuff, but when you look at it, I mean, the argument is being made that Deutsche Bank and perhaps Wells Fargo, if it goes down, are systemically destabilizing institutions. But the greatest and most destabilizing institutions out there are the central banks. And our discussion is being moved towards discussion of particular institutions and their actions as opposed to the regulatory agencies at the center of all this, which is central banks and the fiat debt money system, which they push. And that, to me, has to be the end point of the discussion and the starting point for new policy going forward to try to prevent global economic and societal disruption.
Well, it's always an interesting conversation to have David Jensen from safehaven.com on. And David, I think your points are lucid. I think the conversation is one that informed people around this country are having. You know, maybe not to this level of detail, but I think people are waking up to the crimes of Hillary and those that support her, including the Mockingbird mainstream media. And I think really the gift of this election this year is, and I've just heard this said, I think it might have been by Joseph P. Farrell again, or maybe it was by Gerald Celente or Jeff Rentz, who just recently said, America is on the cusp of revolution, and it's being cited by many people. It's not just those in the alt media. And I think the system, the old world system, the Bush-Clinton system, they know it, and they're scared as hell because people are waking up to their crimes. And I think that is the biggest gift of this election.
Yes, I agree. And I think that the key supporters of Hillary Clinton are Goldman Sachs. And the fact they've done what they've done in terms of prohibiting employees from providing any support for Trump tells us something. And I think that this is the end station for the discussion of corruption in the current system, was the manipulation that went on in the 80s and 90s with the gold market and setting ourselves up with the assistance of the Fed and Alan Greenspan and Larry Summers. And so, you know, government or quasi-governmental agencies with the big banks were in there participating in it. And I think that is the discussion they don't want us to have. And I think it's one that's increasingly happening now. Whether we start talking about Deutsche Bank for a day or two or Wells Fargo for another few days, yet those are key issues, and they may be other Lehman Brother events. But you know, the genesis of this problem relates back to the debt-based money system and the manipulation of the bond market and the destabilization of the gold market, which has been going on for decades now, and that is now coming to an end. And it's being caused by the fact that the physical metal is being withdrawn from the monetary system by Asian and other countries who actually understand the dynamic that we're using and are taking the metal out of the system.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the final word should be that one, because guys, I know all you who are listening understand this, but I know most of your friends, neighbors, and colleagues don't understand it. And the fact is that when this fiat Ponzi system collapses, which is in the process of happening now, it doesn't matter if you're Kyle Bass, Jim Rickards, or even George Soros. Those who are intelligent and informed are buying gold and physical silver because they understand that those are the precious metals. Those are the tangibles that will help you survive whatever's coming next. And I hope the Rothschilds don't get their 1988 economist prediction. I hope it doesn't come true. I hope they don't get their world currency. I hope it all falls apart for them. I hope they're exposed. I hope they go to prison for their crimes. I think now more than ever there's a chance that might happen because the world is waking up. And David Jensen from safehaven.com just helped us dissect all of it. David, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for your time, Sean.
Appreciate it. Guys, you can find David's original writings at safehaven.com and, of course, at SGT Report. And I really do appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks very much. And thanks for your support over at sgtreport.com. Check us out at thephaser.com and, of course, thelibertymill.com. Real news 24/7. Have a great weekend ahead. God bless.